Hey guys, Shalana here. Welcome to the Binge Zone. On today's video, we're going to be talking about Altered Carbon Season 2, looking at the characters, the plot, and the overall theme to get a better understanding of this season. Because we know Altered Carbon is a cyberpunk show, meaning that it deals with a potential future in which humans and machine become so interlinked that it's hard to distinguish what is human, what isn't human, and what does it mean to be human. Specifically, this second season takes a great look at the concept of identity. What makes us us? What makes me me? What makes you you? What is identity? How do we apply that? And how, in a potential future with technology the way that it's advancing, how does that affect us all? While also giving us a riveting badass story, because let's be real, Altered Carbon is fucking badass. But before we dive too deep into the badassery of Altered Carbon, let's take a look at the overall theme, which I said is identity. When we start off in the second season, we see that our main character, Takashi Kovacs, is inhabiting a woman's body because we know in the world of Altered Carbon, consciousness is transferred from body to body. So that kind of gives us our first glimpse into what this identity is, because the physical can't just be your identity. As we've seen multiple times, there's clones, there are people who have inhabited others' bodies. So there right there is a disconnect between the body and your identity. The fact that Takashi has donned many bodies throughout his lifespan, that shows that he isn't just who he is based on his physical, it's more of his subconscious. And then that gets us to wondering, what makes the subconscious? Is the subconscious your soul that makes you unique? Or is your subconscious something else? Well, according to philosopher John Locke, the identity, your self-identity, is tied directly to your consciousness, and that consciousness is not tied directly to your physical, nor is it tied to your soul. Because imagine this, reincarnation. Let's say I'm the reincarnation of Plato, right? Well, I don't have Plato's memories, nor do I have Plato's experiences, because as human beings and as people, we are the sum of our experiences. Therefore, as we progress, everything that's happened to us shape us, inform us into who we are or who we identify as. And we see that throughout the season. For example, let's take a look at not just Takashi, but we're also going to take a look at Kelchris, and we're going to take a look at Poe, the AI. Because this being cyberpunk, an AI like Poe also has feelings or experiences that make them self-identify as a sort of being. Granted, not in the sense that humans the same way we are, but is it really not the same way we are? Because Poe is the sum of his experiences. Therefore, everything that's happened to Poe happens to him that makes him who he is. Now imagine this, and throughout the season, Poe has been glitching. Poe himself has been having issues, and Takashi tells him to go and reboot himself as though he's a regular computer. And in actuality, him being an AI, he's nothing but a program. So you would think the fact that the rebooting would fix him, that would be an okay problem. Now, being the fact that Poe is an AI, Poe also has processes and mental thoughts such as us. So therefore, if he reboots his mind, imagine you getting your mind erased. You are no longer who you are. So that ties into the concept of consciousness being what you identify as. Because is Poe still Poe if he doesn't have his past memories and the past experiences that make him who he is? Is he? I don't think so. And that's really the key to what identity is. Your past experiences, your potential experiences, and the fact that you are able to recall those experiences and self-identify. That's why when Kelchris was inhabited by the Elder, it wasn't really her. She wasn't herself until she got her memories. Even after she was able to tame the Elder, when she didn't have her memories, she wasn't the Kelchris that she knew. We saw her throughout the season struggle trying to find out who she is. If you have your past memories, you have your past experiences, figuring out who you are is pretty simple. But if you don't have those, you can't self-identify as anybody because you have no experience to create your identity. And I find that fascinating because the greatest crux of all is, can there be two yous? We're all unique because all of our experiences are unique. Therefore, our identities are unique. However, in this season of Altered Carbon, Takashi was double-sleeved, meaning that someone took Takashi's old sleeve and put his consciousness inside of it. Now, this consciousness is a little different because this consciousness is Takashi up until a certain point. So at that point, however, those two Takashis are technically the same person and they share the same identity. Granted, one is far older, the one that we know who's in Anthony Mackie's body. He is a more older and traveled Takashi, so he has more experiences, but that does not negate the fact that the other Takashi is still himself. And it's very interesting that while they were at odds with each other, they kind of ended up taking the same path. That goes to show that, again, your identity is the sum of your experiences. And at a certain point, they both became enamored with Kelkis Faulkner, and that created the rift between SeaTac and Takashi, which starts this entire season, which is the basis and crux of the entire show. But the fact that he was respun up and he was sent to get her again, and yet again, this whole new Takashi actually fell for Kelkis yet again. That reaffirms that your identity is the sum of your experiences, because no matter what happens, anytime you spun up that Takashi at that time period in his life with that mental space, if he runs into Kelkis Faulkner, he will turn to her side. It's happened twice now. Granted, this Takashi in Anthony Mack's body is somewhat different because he has more experiences than this Takashi. The fact of the matter remains that they are the sum of their experiences and they're fundamentally the same person. So your identity will stay the same so long as your consciousness stays the same, which is irrelevant of your physical body, and it's also irrelevant of the space that you're in or wherever you are. It's your experiences. Whether you're an artificial intelligence, no matter what happens to you, you are who you are. Let's take, for example, Dig. She was an AI similar to Poe. However, unlike Poe, she wasn't given that autonomy to gain new experiences. When the archaeologues left, she served no purpose and therefore created no new experiences. She just kind of sat around waiting, but as she made new experiences, she began to transform herself and she became her own identity, even to the point where at the end, she chooses her own name as opposed to being Dig, whatever the number was. And that shows that your identity matters with your experiences. If all she ever did was be an artificial intelligence for a digging mining company, she would still be Dig, and all she would know was archaeological sites, digging and excavating certain things, and never truly become her own person, if you will, or as much of a person as an AI can become. But after her experiences with Poe and after her experiences with Takashi, she began to become someone else. Her experiences shaped her new identity. So the theme of identity is very prevalent because we all have an identity and our identities make us unique. But given the situation of Altered Carbon, our identities, while as unique as they can be altered. Now, it's to a limit because now the two Takashis can now form their own experiences and eventually become different people to a certain degree based on their new experiences and how that plays out for them. But at the fundamental of their core, from their childhood to their adolescence to their early or mid adulthood, they are the same person, and that person base form of them creates who they are. So no matter how much different experiences they may have and they may transform, at their core they identify as the same person because they technically are the same person due to the fact that they have these shared experiences. Now, with that being said, the ending of the show sets up the potential seasons to be more metaphysical, if you will, because at this point, the Anthony Mackie Takashi, his body was destroyed. However, his code or his consciousness was spread online, and that adds to the theory that the soul is not who you are. The consciousness, which is your experiences or your brain's data waves, are who you are. So once his consciousness is reconstructed and put in a new body, that is going to take us to a whole nother realm of what does it even mean to be human? Because as a human, we think about the flesh on our skin, the way our mind thinks, and everything we do. However, in Altered Carbon, that line is blurred ever so much with every passing season. We look at Poe and his interaction with Lizzie in the first season. We look at Poe throughout the second season. And now we see Takashi, his mind has been inserted into a computer as a fragmented code. And that still is him because his mind and his memories will still retain and he will still have those experiences. So at what point do we differentiate ourselves from an AI, and at one point do we truly become human? That's a question that Cyberpunk has been asking for a long time, and I'll be honest with you, I don't have the answers for that, but I'd love to hear your feedback in the comment section below. And guys, if you like this video, definitely give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button if you guys have not already, and until next time, binge on.